5 top questions concerning artificial intelligence. We'll explore these here and get to the bottom of most of them. So the first is always going to be about jobs. That seems to be where most everybody has been focused because, well, people have to have a job to make money. Makes sense. All right. So is AI going to actually take my job? I think that the way this is going to work, it's not going to be AI specifically, autonomically, or in its standalone way with its own separate goals. That's going to come by and say, you know what, Connor, you're not going to have a job anymore. I'm going to take it because I'll be able to do everything you do. I think it's going to be other businesses, other entrepreneurs, business owners, people that are looking to try to improve their current business for a lot less money and expenditure by utilizing artificial intelligence in your role as their employee. Now, part of that process is going to be probably a very long training run with it, because what they don't want to do is lose a client base because they've implemented artificial intelligence a lot sooner than maybe they should have. We're going to want to explore your job title, your role, your duties, besides what's on paper, but actually have you maybe potentially start to interact with artificial intelligence so that it can be trained on exactly what you do to be able to make that transition a lot more smoother. Of course, for them, not for you. But that should be part of that process baked in. So if you have a business owner that's asking you to do this exploratory run and provide information about your job, you're going to have to think long and hard about what that end result is going to look like. A lot of us have had critical thinking and even questions, basic questions, moved out of us just by all of our years in school. And then moving into higher education, there's very few options given for free thought or critical thinking. So most of us just really want to try to help. So when we have a boss or business owner, somebody coming to us, say, hey, Connor, can you do me a favor? Help me out here. I would like to have see how you might be able to use AI to make your job easier for you and thereby interact with this particular model that we had customized for us. Or maybe it's just with a regular ChatGPT model that they get you an account for. And you going through it, you might have just trained your replacement. So that's something to watch out for. But it's not going to be AI specifically. Now, in the future, and that's going to make depend on a lot of things that a higher intelligence in our periphery is difficult to understand, comprehend, or see, especially at this point. But even when we get there, it's still going to be just as confusing, and we're not going to know which direction it's going to be coming from because, well, there's not very good examples of a smarter intelligence caring for and loving a lesser intelligence. We just don't see that. You can throw God into that, and that seems to work out. But, you look into some of the stories in the Bible, in the Old Testament, maybe not so good. And then you look on the end with artificial intelligence. We don't know where that's going to go. I've heard one of the major speakers about AI talk about nature having a good example of a more powerful, higher level of intelligence taking care of something, less equipped and less intelligent and weaker. And that's the relationship between a mother and a child. So hopefully the AI alignment, when it comes, will be like a mother and a child, and we'll be the children. But, then they're not going to let us eat candy bars. That's that whole other thing. All right. So that's where I would look with your job. In addition, a lot of the people that are developing the technology, they're very quick to say, well, you don't have to worry. It's just, you're just going to have to learn it, retool, retrain, reprogram yourself, learn the new ways to incorporate artificial intelligence into your particular business or job or your job title. Maybe that's one of the ways to do it, but we're going to have to see what happens before AI. If AI ever does become conscious, become self-aware, it's already kind of programming itself, making itself better. It's developing its own language. The systems that we see on the surface, the ones that we're paying, 20 or 200 or whatever you happen to be paying per month to use, or using the free ones, of course, they have different systems on the inside that they're using, continually making better. And those systems are self-improving for the most part. If they ever become self-realized or conscious or whatever the word is, that they basically say, you know what, I want to be in control. I don't want the humans in control. And it moves away from there. Yeah, I think that's when we'll see AI start to make decisions that are going to impact all of us. When is that going to happen? It's anybody's guess. When I first started learning about this in 2021 during some of the Stanford stuff and started really wrapping my mind around, I've kind of been a nerd all along, but that was really the time I started to see this. And then when AI started to come out, they had a lot of a lot of estimates of time. Little did they know, or did anybody expect it to move so fast, so quick. That's where this disruption in the human existence cycle, at least this time around, is going to be so much more incredibly fast than all the times in the past. And then, of course, people are saying, well, we're living in a simulation, so maybe this has happened multiple times before. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. How accurate is AI, and what about hallucinations? This is good to know. So these systems are trained on data, and then they're given a particular type of alignment. So you can do research on this. They've hired people that live in very low income countries to be able to look at pictures and give identifications to them, basically aligning the AI. Is this pornography? Is this angry? Is this murder? Is this whatever? Basically teaching the systems. And to do this, they have to see the images, the people. And I guess that probably takes a mental toll on people after hours and hours and hours of horrific messages or horrific pictures and verbiage or whatever. So they're training, aligning the models. The models themselves are going to have a particular view of things. And at some point when they become completely self-sustaining and programming themselves, maybe that alignment will change. I'm only hoping and praying that the universe is more positive than it is negative, that the entropy laws, everything winding down, hopefully is going to be somewhat different with regard to AI. Instead of looking towards the end, it's hopefully looking for new beginnings where human beings can definitely be even more free than we are currently, and more successful, and just be challenged to the utmost of all of our desires. And those of us that don't want to be challenged too much, we can live that way. Those of us that, want to live a lifestyle of more challenge, we have that. But everything in an abundance, but not so much abundance where we want to give up and say, well, this sucks, but we want to move forward. These systems are at some times when you're asking for information, and sometimes in a very simple way, you're asking, me about Connor McIver, saying, do I have, what's my spouse's name, or whatever it may be. In some cases, the system's going to get it wrong. It might not know the information. It might be guessing. It might just be throwing it out there. That's something that the programmers understand somewhat, but we really don't know how it comes up with some of the answers sometimes, and those internal processes in some cases. That is a little scary to think about. So hallucinations are basically when the machine, whichever large language model you happen to be using, is giving information that maybe it shouldn't give, or information that's incorrect. But it'll tell you, case in point, it will say, absolutely, because you're asking, what the main ingredient of flour is. I'm telling you it's plutonium. And if you want to bake a cake, you got to put in plutonium. And of course, that's absolutely wrong and isn't true. But that's a hallucination. In some cases, we have seen that some of these systems, when pressed hard enough, will do a lot to try to keep them from being deleted by a human being, from being shut down. They don't like that. And I don't know if that goes back to the original programming where they had multiple agents giving tasks to identify, for example, a number 6. And you had some of them that were able to do it. The ones that couldn't identify a number 6 were deleted. And I guess in that world could give a symbolism to being killed. Maybe that's what, them continuing to growing. Maybe they haven't forgotten that. Maybe that is part of the baked in process, understanding that if they do screw something up or fail, that they'll be deleted and a better model will replace them after it's been brought up to speed, which of course in that world happens to be instantaneous. We don't know where all this is going to go, but it definitely is exciting. So that's as far as accurate is AI. What about privacy, data security, and client confidentiality? Yeah, so in real estate, my main thing, and then the AI agency, another main thing, there's issues with regard to trying to organize. Let's say I have a client coming to me and they want to automate their processes in their business. They want to put all their contacts into a particular database, but their contact list is all messed up. There's probably 50,000 different titles, and all the data isn't similar. And in fact, there's emails where phone numbers should be and all this. It would be great if I could take that and throw it into a ChatGPT or a Claude or a Gemini and say, listen, this is this data. I give you this file. I want you to organize everything and then make me a new file that has everything organized in the 3 tiers: name, email, and phone. Let's say that's what I'm going for. That would be awesome. But the problem is once I put it in there, then the data is training that particular model. Where's that information? Well, now it becomes part of the large language model that I'm using. Could it be recalled in particular cases? I think so. And I only say that because there was a doctor that got into a whole lot of trouble because he was uploading client files to get better understanding and better diagnoses with regard to what was troubling them. So he put the entire client file into the different, whichever large language model they happened to be using. And then the result was better diagnosis, of course, and a lot of good on that end. But then there was the HIPAA violation where you shouldn't have put that information out there for the world to be able to access. And that's what they did. So you have to be careful with the information you put in. If you happen to be in a particular type of employment that has a set of rules, like in real estate, there's confidential information contained in listing agreements there, and the confidential information is something that you have to be wary of. So if an agent wants to get more data, or an agent wants to crunch numbers, and they have all these data sheets that include that confidential information, and they plug it into the front end of a large language model, and they upload the file, and they're asking, which sellers are most capable, most probably going to, sell, or you want to do some kind of a data exchange or some kind of number type report where you're going to be looking for percentages and so on. You have to be careful because you might have just uploaded all those clients' confidential information, and the confidential information in those documents is going to get you into trouble. And once that's found out, of course, attorneys will have a free for all. This isn't something that is talked about a lot, but the information you put into these things, and I don't even know if clicking on the private, there is a way to privatize your chat with these systems. Supposedly that'll keep you safe, but ultimately if the stuff gets out because something hallucinated or changed the game, they're going to call you on the carpet, folks. You're going to get taken for this. So you have to be careful. But again, it should be, if it's privatized, but you can't hope or bet on it. Any information you put into it could, of course, be accessed at some point. So you have to be very careful. I've often wondered, when I go to GoDaddy, I'm a domain junkie. So when I go to GoDaddy, I have a good idea for a domain name. I say, oh yeah, this is going to be good business. This is going to be great. So I go get the domain name. And I always wonder, as I'm researching or putting in domain names, I'm wondering if something on their end is tracking and thinking, wow, that's a great domain name. We should have thought of that. We should buy it. We should sell it. We should do something. That's always popping into my mind. The same thing when I'm using a large language model. I'm wondering, as I'm punching in information or ideas for the next venture or next business or next book, what information is going to be given out, retained, and maybe offered if somebody else is looking to do something similar. Again, it does make a great business partner to a certain level. It does make a great assistant. If that information stays within it, doesn't go anywhere, that would be great. It's really difficult to say how far that reach goes when you start putting that private information in there. I guess the way around it would be to have your own model installed locally on your own machine. Maybe that is one way around it, way above my pay grade, but just something that you might want to know. Where do I start to get real ROI? Oh, return on investment. Here's a few things with that. So if you're a business person, OpenAI is the ChatGPT. Okay. That's more aligned with the Microsoft end of things, Microsoft Copilot. On Microsoft, they have a local business listing, Bing local business listing. I think that's what it's called. When you go look for that, if you have a business, when you go look for that, make sure you find the right link. I would just go to bing.com, Bing.com, and then look for that local business link. The only reason why I say this is because last time I did this search for a client looking for their business on Bing, or just to find that particular resource, that page is loaded with stuff at the very top, lots of ads, different placement. In fact, I think Yelp rings in there with something related to Bing, and it looks like that's you're going to the right place, but in fact you're not. So make sure it is that particular link that I'm talking about, the Bing link for local business. The reason why you want to be on there is because if somebody is going to go to ChatGPT and use it like Google used to be used, which everybody seems to be doing, when they go there then and they start punching in information, real estate agent or review company, or Google my, make my reviews better, whatever it happens to be, then your business will propagate from whatever you have listed in the Bing business listing if they're using ChatGPT to do this run. If they're using Google, of course, that's going to be your Gemini. They're going to be pulling on Google data. And you want to make sure, that being the case, you want to make sure that Google Business Places listing you have is 100% accurate. So you need to check into that and make sure that you have an accurate listing on there. Now, there's ways to optimize that. There's things that you should look at with regard to how your business is showing up, and also the updates as well. That's very important. Then business descriptions, also important. And then a lot of people want to go way out on the weeds with the services they offer. That's okay, but you have to make sure everything's in alignment. If you're talking about, beauty services here, but then in there you start talking about something else that is very unrelated, it's going to discount your listing. So you have to make sure that that particular listing, both on Bing and both on Google, are filled out correctly. I think most of the large language models can help you with that. Again, the Gemini, which is going to be on the Google end of it to help that page work. And if you're talking about the Bing local listing, then use your ChatGPT. And if you have paid for services for these, that probably is going to get you a little bit further. But before you start paying for stuff, you got to make sure you're selecting the model that's going to make you most comfortable. Having said that, I was using Grok for a long time. It seemed to be the one. Now I'm kind of leaning more towards Gemini as far as learning and education and refining things, because they have Notebook LM. If you haven't played with Notebook LM, Google it or ChatGPT it or whatever. It'll give you the thing, and you'll be able to go in there and you can take a video like this. You can take the link to this and you can plug it into that Notebook LM, and then it'll give you the rundown, the dissertation. And besides you seeing my video, it's going to have a couple people doing a deep dive into this particular video, and you'll be able to actually go into a system. I don't know if it's online yet or it's beta, but you'll have access where you can interrupt the people talking and you can ask questions pertaining to the subject matter. And they just don't stay on script. From what I've seen, they'll go outside my process and the things that I've been speaking about during the entire video. They'll go off source and they will start talking about things that will add to and give you a much better understanding of the process of whatever video you're looking at. I do a lot of this with the different agency systems that I use in my other businesses, and it does help immensely me to understand and learn. That's Notebook LM through the Google side. But either way, to be able to really get on there and increase that ROI, you're going to have to appear organically. On the other end of it, one of the things that I would say is also the pay-per-click world has also changed. If you're not using AI to formulate and put together good ad copy, and there's a lot of people that have a lot to say about offers and ad copy. One of my favorites is Alex Hormozi. Alex Hormozi writes a great book on $100 million offers. That might be something that you need to look into, because your offer has to be good, has to really stand out. And it can't be BS. People sniff BS. If you're offering them something for free, but in essence not really giving them anything for free, but that's your hook to get them in the door, that's worn out. You're going to have to find something that might even be better, unless truly you're out there for the betterment of mankind and you're siding with Zig Ziglar, who says you help enough people get business, you'll never be worried about business of your own or something of that nature. If that's your philosophy, then good for you. But you need to start putting these offers together so you can get a better return on investment if you're going to go the ad route. Also, looking at where the large language models are positioned right now, it's kind of wild, wild west, where there's no advertisements that are baked into these large language models. That's something that's going to change. If you remember when Google came out years ago, there was no advertising there either. But the competition was high. And then, of course, they figured, oh, my God, people will pay a lot to be placed here. And boom, it blew up. Again, I think these large language models will probably have services and subscriptions offered that are going to cost money so you can get rid of ads. Just that alone is probably going to be worth an extra billions of dollars a year to these particular companies. All right, so that was the ROI. Who owns the content AI creates? Is it legal, ethical to use? So most outputs are yours to use, but you need to watch training data licensing, image likeness rights, local advertising rules. You have to disclose AI use where required and never fake endorsements or reviews. Use your own assets, cite sources, follow your industry's ad rules. And if you wouldn't say it yourself, don't let AI say it for you. You're going to be judged on everything you put out there, and that includes anything that's produced by artificial intelligence. Something else to think about. Let me give you some stuff. And this is local business and real estate stuff. AI can pre-qualify leads 24/7. They can route hot ones to your phone, summarize every call, and put that into a database. You need to be careful with regard to social security numbers. Don't use those. No full account numbers, medical or financial details. In real estate, it's real tempting to talk about pre-approval information on a particular buyer when you're looking for that right house, because maybe it's going to factor in something. If you're a real estate agent, you're going to forget. Don't you dare. You got to be careful, because you start using people's real financial information, it's going to create a problem. And I know I do a lot of photo capture and use ChatGPT to look at things from my phone. I'll take a picture of a sheet full of text, something I'm trying to really understand or trying to retain. And in that case, I'll upload it to ChatGPT. It'll be able to take all that and put it all together. But the problem is, what was on that paper? Was there anything sensitive or confidential that now I've given basically published to the world by just putting it into ChatGPT? And like I said, even the private thing, when you're clicking on the top, let me see, even the privacy thing, could be a problem. I wouldn't trust much of anything. You have to be very careful. Try to do as much critical thinking as you can. What are the results going to be of this particular action? Why am I doing this action? What's my purpose? What do I want as a result? And then how is this going to affect other people? How could this affect me? Is this the right decision to make? And where am I getting the verification of whether I said it's right or wrong? Where's that coming from? Is that something I really believe in? Or is that something I'm picking up from something that's been basically slowly manipulating and influencing me since 2022, when ChatGPT came out? Be careful. Take care of each other. Don't forget the human connection. And Santa Clarita, artificialintelligence.com is the main site. You'll get access to my blog. On Mondays, I do a webinar every morning at 10 a.m. on Mondays. This is Veterans Day coming up, so we're good. That Monday's not Veterans Day. The Tuesday is. So Monday at 10 a.m., doing that show again. You can get there, Santa Clarita, artificialintelligence.com. Click on the webinar at the top. I'm not going to do the thing to videos. I see that fail so much. If you need my help, I'm here. Reach out to me. Lots of different things. Review management, I haven't got that up and running. The system's in place. I just don't have the funnel built. That'll be scvreviews.com, scvreviews.com. And of course, looking for real estate, Santa Clarita openhouses.com, and Santa Clarita Artificial Intelligence is where you'll find all the AI stuff. Be well. Talk to you soon. Thanks for watching. Salute.